I'm afraid at this point we have listened so much of information and comments that I don't think I'll do well my job if I read my speech. And so I'll make my speech available, but perhaps I'll just make a very few comments so that I don't tire you so much. Again, I would like to thank you, Excellencies, colleagues, friends, stakeholders, all of you, to thank you very sincerely, because we know the reason why you are here is because we are all working for the well-being of children. It's because this has been, for a great deal of our life, what we are striving to make our families, our communities, our nations, our continent, what we call child-friendly. Before we go ahead, can I ask you really to give a loud round of applause to Asefa and his team for this report, please. You may think that I'm biased because I chaired the board, the international board. But I'm speaking as an African. It's very rare for us to have a picture very scientifically based, which produce data which you hardly can challenge. And with a process which was so consultative that both governments, civil society organizations, our continental bodies were engaged. So at the end of the day, this report was compiled by ACPF, but it is a report in which many stakeholders sitting around this room or represented in this room were part of. So this is our report. Secondly, we were told here that these reports, particularly not the reports, but the Child-Friendly Index, which we are celebrating as well, has been appreciated and even adopted in other regions, particularly in Asia. We must remind ourselves that it's very rare also people acknowledging, recognizing, and valuing things we as Africans we have done. We are seen as those who receive from other parts of the globe. And here we have an institution which actually is very small. The secretariat which we have here, it's very small. But it has been able to engage a network of researchers and collaborators to make sure that the outcome of the work of ACPF, it is really grounded, and it is a product of not only of collaboration but also is a scientific work. That's why it is being adopted. And again, please do applaud. Yeah. Because many times we just refer what we receive from others, how good it is. It's good. We are exporting methodologies of how to look at our own picture, our own face, and how we can have tools which allow us not only to take stock, but more importantly, to plan better. So that's the second thing. The third thing which I would like also to say is, we have not been always good as African institutions to sustain success. Sometimes we do good, but now to sustain it and to keep growing, it has been a challenge. And here we have an institution, and I'm very comfortable to say this because I'm chair of the board very recently. The guidance and leadership of what ACPF is today comes from the times of Salim Salim, who was the first, President Shisanu. So I think we need to acknowledge that we have here an institution which is solid, which has been able to sustain success, and we simply hope and wish that with the contribution of everyone, we'll continue to do better. And in this, we welcome, exactly as it has been mentioned somehow here, contributions of how we can do better. How can we respond better? Having said this, I want to acknowledge the contributions. And Ambassador, thank you. Your point is well taken, that where are the children? But I think it was the chair of the committee who took from my mouth what I wanted to say. This launch is meant mostly for this range of institutions represented here. We take your point, Ambassador. When we go to launch the reports at country level, yes, that's where, even in a more creative way which takes the big issues into the national context, in which then you will have not only experts and government officials, you will have parliamentarians, you will have private sector, you have youth organizations, women's organizations, and children themselves, really to have a national debate to say where we stand today and where we have to go and how we do it. We think it's where it's more important in a less intimidating kind of environment to have the voices of children in their diversity, actually, to express their aspirations and also their evaluation, to see how they see institutions and people and nations caring for them, nurturing them, and even to say how we can improve this responsibility of being the adults who not only care and protect children, but listen and take from children what are the aspirations to do better. So we'll do that, definitely. We intend actually to have different kind of launches to make sure that it is more owned by those who will have to implement it at a national level. Now, we all know that we as Africans, our major problem is not to devise laws and policies. Our major problem is implementation. So I thank you, Chairperson of the Committee of Experts, in suggesting that not only we should talk of the 3 Ps, but we should add the I, which is implementation. But it's precisely in that space where the report and the index is trying, and I'm saying trying, to contribute. When we produce the index and we show, at least in this report, is 52 countries, okay? Where each one of the countries stands today, it is precisely to say, you have made progress, it is true. But some of us, in a scale of 10, they are in 2, and others are in 4. Others perhaps are in 7, and others are in 8. Because there's no one who can have all the 10 yet. And this is not to dismiss the progress made. Our report says clearly that Africa has made great strides in particularly in the 2 Ps. The one of protection and provision. Where we are lacking even more, it's in participation. We acknowledge this. But we also have to be mindful that no matter how much we have invested so far, the reality is that the way which we still have to cover is much bigger than what we have achieved so far. And this is a reality. And the reality which is so important that the investment has to be now. Let me give an example. If a child who completes primary school in 2018 leaves primary school without reading, without being able to express clearly, without counting properly, this child is functionally illiterate. And we know that it's hundreds and thousands and even if not millions of our kids. It doesn't mean that the government have not poured money into infrastructure, into teaching colleges, I mean for teachers, and even in textbooks. All these governments have done. And we acknowledge, we applaud this. What we are saying is that the aim is to have a child who is able to master certain levels of scientific knowledge, who have to have developed life skills, who have to be a functional citizen in 21st century. That's what we are saying. And that is what we have to acknowledge, that the investment is being applauded. But the outcome, the outcome, it's not what we have intended to invest. That's what we are saying. And it's important, again, that this is said by us Africans, looking into the eyes of other Africans, to say thank you very much for the millions we have put into education and health. But these children, 10 years from now, they will not be functional citizens. And now we are being known as the continent which is lagging behind. But with this rhythm, 10, 15, 20 years from now, we'll continue to be the continent which is lagging behind. That's what we are saying. And we say this with the engagement of offering our little capacity of working together. We are engaging one another so that the investment we are making has to produce the outcomes which we intend. And this, in essence, actually is respect for these children. The worst thing you can do is to give the impression that you are giving education to a child who is not getting the outcomes. It's not right for the child. It's not right for the parents. And it's not right for the nation. These nations will not develop. And we have to be us, Africans, to confront these realities. If this is a report is being presented by an international organization, I know the resistance would be even more, it would be even big. But this is what we have. Let me give another example. My own country, Mozambique, the average of children who are stunted is 43. They say now 43, 42. So what? It doesn't make any difference. The reality is almost half of Mozambican children under 5 are stunted. What does it mean? It means these children will never develop the full potential of their intellectual capacity. They will learn something. They will be somehow, productive. But they will not as productive as they could be if they had not been stunted. And this is about food. It's about food, nutritious food. For goodness sake. What is happening that we Africans in 50 countries, 50 years of freedom, 40-something like in my own country, we still are not able to feed properly our children. That's what we are saying. And in essence, we are saying that these children, their future will be much limited than any other children in other parts of the world. Who amongst us, who is a father, a mother, or who is a grandmother like me, would like to have your children and your grandchildren to say, come 20 years from now, they will never be equal to any other citizen in the world. And you sit with that reality. You can't. And we all do our best in our families for our own children, for our own grandchildren. And what we are saying is that the millions of children who are stunted are my children and are your children. And it is your responsibility, it's my responsibility to change that. And we can. And that's the point. I think what I'm trying to say here, I'm a passionate grandmother, is that we have to change this attitude that, yes, we are doing, and we are doing. We are saying we are not doing enough, and it's not right what we are doing. So you need to change the way you do things. Am I making myself clear? The question is not whether we are working hard or not. People are working hard, I know. People are working hard. But what we are saying is that, it's not about how hard you work. It's about what is the outcome of your hard work. And this is what we have to deal with. And to accept that we have to change the business as usual. We really have to. We really have to change the business as usual. And here, we don't have private sector. And we will do the launch, Ambassador. Yes, we'll do launch with the private sector as well. We will do launches with academics. We'll do launches with young people and women. You know why? Our education systems Most of them have not changed since independence. We put something here, a color here, another color here, but the essence of the education system have not changed. Most of them are based in colonial kind of systems we inherited. 50 years, 40 years, 30 years. No. The education system have to be radically transformed. And we have to accept this. That it's not about pouring only lots of money, it's to transform what kind of education we want to give to our children. What kind of technical skills they have to. What kind of life skills. We have children who many times they mismatch in what they know and in what they are. Am I making myself clear? Yeah, one thing is what you know, another thing is what you are as a person, to be evolved and, So I'm being too long and too passionate. I just want us to accept this. Thank you so much. We are all working very hard. And thank you. We will thank one by one of our governments, because there's no one single government in this continent which has not increased investment in education. But we will also tell them that, Mr. President, I'm terribly sorry. When it comes to this, you should be in 10, but your country is in 2. So you still have 8 steps to go. And our heads of state need to hear this. Our ministers of finance need to hear this. It's not only health and education, by the way. So this is the conversation. Which one? The report. Second, the index as a tool to say, where do you stand in 2018? And whether it is to 2024, 2030, or 26 to 3, you have to know how far you still have to climb the mountain to be at the top of the mountain. Thank you so much.